Alright, time for some more illogic. Last time we faced off against Zach and his Summit County Psyducks. Please go check out that video first if you've not done so already, as we went over the Teambuilder and battle in which, spoiler alert, the Bouffalant dropped to 0-1 for the first time since Season 5 against Zach as well. This one directly by a tragic 10% miss on Play Rough, which allowed Baxcalibur to stay up and get the last couple KOs. It's tough, but we've got to move on to Week 2, where we face off against Adam and his Adam's Pidgey Emporium. Timestamps are in the description. Congrats to Adam on his recent promotion from the Beginners League. Unfortunate that he had to face Chad Week 1 in a 5-0 loss, and now gets us in Week 2. Welcome to the big time. Though, mind you, he's partially responsible for our league functioning in the first place. You may have noticed my usual start to these videos has been replaced with a cheap copy of what Elf Owls came up with, and that's because the Draft League website we were using is no longer operational. Adam came to the rescue. In just a few short weeks, he was able to put together the site we use now, which included draft features, with more and more features being added as he is able. Thank you so much, Adam, for making the Wooper Club experience smooth sailing, but I'm afraid I'm going to have to be another bump in the road here for you in Week 2. We're dealing with Screamtail at the top of the speed chart, followed by new acquisition Espeon, then Volcarona, Haxorus, Annihilate, Rotom-Mow, Goodra, Corviknight, Tyranitar, Ditto, and Toxapex. Tons of bulk here, tons of setup potential too, with a couple great choice users as well, including that cheeky Ditto. There's a lot to talk through here, and a lot to take advantage of. For example, if Tyranitar were to come, I would have zero issues with that. My top two mons are immune to Sandstorm Chip and can hit back super effectively with those stabs. Azumarill and Slitherwing at the top also hit super effectively with stabs, and even tank dark moves aimed at Goldango, plus mons like Gastrodon and Wo-Chan are going to be taking nothing from its attacks. It has nothing to do here, really, though. T-Tar is another one of those mons that people seem to like to bring against me, having faced it twice in the same season just last season. Next, I'll go Espeon. I understand it's the new kid on the block and it has some utility with Magic Bounce, plus lots of power behind Psychic, Dazzling Gleam, and Shadow Ball, but it's pretty fragile and predictable. My Spinners outspeed it, Scarfers outspeed, there aren't many mons, it's going to OHKO, and I have the power to OHKO right back as well. And with Corviknight looking like the better hazard remover, I'll have to give it a pass. Next, I'll go with Goodra. It's just the worst dragon type in the matchup who can't really tank particularly well here either. Maybe Goldango struggles to get through, but the incoming fire or ground moves are quite predictable. In a one-on-one, it's tough to say for sure what it would actually beat on my team, especially with things like Garchomp, Azumarill, and Slitherwing looking so threatening. Next up is Rotom-Mow, who could try to Volt Switch around while threatening Leaf Storm on Gastro and Will-O-Wisp on Garchomp, but once again it doesn't really accomplish much without boosting. I outspeed with key members like Chomp and Talonflame, but if he's Scarf, he doesn't have the power to break through things like Goldango or the Chomp, not to mention the Slitherwing's offensive prowess against it, and Wo-Chan and Toxtricity ignoring most of what it's trying to do. The last one is pretty tough for me to pick out, so I'll make a somewhat bold prediction and say that Toxapex looks the weakest among those that are left. It has the potential to wall up on something like a Azumarill, so I wouldn't be too surprised if it came, but apart from that, and maybe Slitherwing, it's tough to see a use for it. Without so many of its other assets it used to have, it looks to crumble in front of Taunt, plus Garchomp, plus Toxtricity with free Volt switches, as there are no ground types on his team, plus Toxtricity can absorb Toxic Spikes, plus Goldango who can absolutely abuse Toxapex freely. With that said, I think the first one I'll expect then is Screamtail, the mon I wanted so desperately to pair with Talonflame in rounds 5 and 6. Screamtail also gets abused by the likes of Goldango and Toxtricity and is taunt bait for Talonflame potentially, but the ability to set up rocks, pass wishes, even potentially spread Arms of Paralysis seems like it's good enough to make the team. Add in Taunt, T-Wave, maybe even a somewhat threatening Dazzling Gleam depending on some of the matchups here, and the ability to even beat the likes of Garchomp, Slitherwing, and maybe even Azu, and you've got yourself a threat. Next, I'll go Ditto, which seems a bit odd, but actually is kinda nice for my team, which I'm sure we'll get into as we look at the team itself. I do love prepping for Ditto and often hope that it comes, but in a league where the power level is higher than ever, it makes sense for Ditto to be a bigger threat than usual, maybe even threaten some ghost moves from Goldango or hazards from Garchomp if I'm not careful. Next up will be Corviknight. It's definitely the hazard remover this game for my opponent and can punish and or beat several of my best mons 1v1, including all of my physical attackers. This mon is a pain to break through, and if it's paired with Screamtail and or Toxapex, I could be in for a nightmare. But I have a few ideas. Next up, of course, his top 3 offensive threats, starting with Annihilate. How do you kill this thing? Bulk Up, Rest, Taunt, Drain Punch, Raid Fist. Pick 4 of those moves. Good luck figuring out the best way to KO it without powering up Rage Fist to unreal numbers. Ghost Fighting is such a good offensive typing, and it may not be the best equipped to handle it either, with no Psychic types and just Talonflame for flying offense. Now imagine Wish should support 2. I'm trying not to think about Volcarona either, who almost requires Lycanroc Dusk to revenge, but even then could Terra pretty effectively out of its typing to catch that and or Azumarill by surprise. It looks easy for my team to manage until it boosts, then Terras and boosts again, and with Giga Drain coverage too, I could be a goner in no time flat. Finally, Haxorus is my scariest mon to face here with nearly unmatched physical prowess off the bat, and the ability to boost up further with D-Dance or simply rock a choice item. My switch-ins to it are extremely limited. We'll see what we can do, I guess. What we're not going to do is bring Gastrodon. Jeez, what a miserable matchup. It lets his defensive pieces do as they want in front of me, particularly heal up, and the offensive pieces just are not stopped by this. Maybe T-Tar, but everything I've got stops T-Tar. Clear Smog was a neat trick last time until Annihilate boosts up my face and gets to a 300 base Rage Fist for basically free. Volcarona with Giga Drain access too? Ditto copying hazards? Nah, I'm good. I actually will be leaving behind Lycanroc again too, even with the Volcarona matchup, as everything else has me quite worried. I don't have the firepower to 2-hit KO things like Corviknight or Toxapex while being outsped by Screamtail, and Annihilate would love for me to switch in unless I've got player off coverage specifically for it. Rotom Scarf, Volcarona Terra, I don't see it. Next is Darkspun, who I was convinced would have a great matchup thanks to the well-baked body, but actually Volcarona can still break through the weaker special side. Annihilate can avoid the 2-hit KO and even Terra to make the matchup worse. Haxorus can break through with a boost, and once again the defensive piece is set up in front of me super freely, so I don't think I can bring it. Cyclizar again misses the cut. I actually like Talonflame matchup quite a bit, and definitely more than Cyclizar as a hazard remover, but even then, Annihilate can tank anything I've got, not to mention everything else that he's got. Specific coverage is pretty cool, but I don't see enough power backing up Cyclizar this time to take care of his threats, so even though I like U-Turn and Taunt here a lot, I'll leave it behind. Finally, another friend from week 1 is staying behind. It's Wo-Chien. Taunt for the slow threats is nice, and Leech Seed and Knock is real cool too in the matchup, but I'm a bit worried about things like Substitute, plus the offensive threats like Volcarona and Haxorus doing a little too much damage for my liking. Maybe if the stat spread was more optimized like its brother Tinglu, but I don't want Wo-Chien to think I love it any less, so instead I'll just leave it behind. 2 debuts this week, let's talk about those. After Goldango, the biggest thing I see about my opponent's team is the lack of hazard removal and how Corviknight is beaten down bad by Goldango. We're trying to take advantage of Corviknight switches plus Screamtail and Toxapex with a fully physically defensive substitute Goldango, who can get a free turn against any of those pivoting into an actual Goldango answer. My main method this week will be through Thunderwave and Hex, with T-Wave trying to slow down the Volcarona Haxorus Annihilate that otherwise outspeed me. It's a pretty spammable move with only Rotom being immune to it, and with this much bulk plus recover, our substitute even has a good shot too to survive a Volt Switch from it. And I don't think anything wants to take a Hex, especially if we're in a position to boost it up with the Terra Ghost. It's pretty simple and straightforward, but unlike last week, I want my first round pick to be an integral part of my strat this week. Now then, what is this going to be protecting? Hazards from Garchomp, of course. It's a shame that Garchomp is relegated, quote-unquote, to a hazard setter this gen more than ever, but it's so good at it. Rough Skin with Helmet to punish attackers with dual hazards I anticipate to be up all game. Earthquake is a great punish on most of his team, including things like Volcarona and Toxapex, and Dragon Tail is my phasing move to stop boosting and accumulate even more hazard damage. Simple set, but maybe not one that's being expected here, so I think that's kind of neat. Can't Terra, so nothing to talk about there. Just simple blue color hazard setter, yes sir. So what are we chipping for? How about this Banded Slitherwing that wants to click First Impression so badly? Volcarona's setup, First Impression, if it's Terra'd into a neutral type, is doing 95%, let alone if it's going Grass because it's fearing the Azumarill. Haxorus setting up, First Impression is a chance to OHKO that. You turn around freely, only fearing Annihilate boosting Rage Fish, and go Burr, maybe even with an unironic Terra Bug. It's not 100% the best matchup, but it's my failsafe against boosting bonds that I hypothetically miss a 90% accurate move against. A couple other small options here, Close Combat, obvious for Stab, and then Stun Spore to help support the Thunderwave strat a little bit too, especially if he's got a Mon or two that he seems to be favoring as the switch-ins. I would love to be able to get up that Stun Spore into an Annihilate that's going to be trying to switch in, or a Toxapex that's trying to switch in, at least get something onto it before I switch out to help better set up the Goldango in case I'm missing even more. Kind of cute, and we'll move on to another cute set here with my Azumarill packing Belly Drum. I don't know if this is the play. There are a few threats to even +6 Azu, but honestly, I don't even really anticipate clicking it. I think the coverage itself is pretty neat. If we're in a position to click it, then hey, that could be game right there, but it just depends on the situation. No fairy coverage, which we'll get to at the end. Ice Spinner does just fine anyways, and Terra Water for some extra oomph. just in case. We don't exactly need anything to break through something like Toxapex because we have a couple answers that are just about 100% guaranteed to destroy it, particularly looking at the Gholdengo there. Next set, Talonflame is going to be something very similar to before. I said I didn't need Cyclizar, and that's because I don't actually have hazard removal at all this week. I don't really trust my opponent's hazard game, aside from maybe rocks, and my boots take care of that for me anyways. Instead, we've got some more options. We've got Flame Body here instead of the Gale Wings, because I don't think I necessarily need to always outspeed +1 or even +2 Volcarona, considering Brave Bird's already doing a ton, and it would require a special coverage move, even outside of some of the normal extra coverage moves, to be able to even hit Talonflame. Plus, we also have U-Turn to be able to pivot around a little bit more, and Taunt anyways to be able to stop that setup, as well as setup from others. It's pretty straightforward otherwise, with the ability to outspeed his whole team at neutral, and a Flying Terra type just in case. Finally, it works so nice, we'll do it twice. Scarf Toxtricity can run Modest and outspeed his whole team just like in week 1. Boom Burst goes Burr, Volt Switch is good. It's just a pretty darn good mod all the way around. Not too much to talk about here, but before we get into the battle, we need to talk a little bit of Ditto and go back to some of these other mods here a bit. Gholdengo does not have a Hex Resist on my team, but my Gholdengo should be taking about half, and I'm immune to Thunder Wave anyways on my opponent's Ditto's Gholdengo, so I could either recover on Ditto or go to a healthy, bulky mon like Garchomp or Talonflame. Pretty easy. Garchomp does have a Dragon move, but it's negative priority. My real concern is him setting up my own hazards. If I don't expect Dragon Tail to come out, Talonflame is another pretty easy switch here to try and get a little bit of good momentum, or Taunt to stop the extra hazards too, or I can just try to take it down, so at least has to exchange its life for its hazards. Azumarill has no fairy coverage because the wall to Azu is... well, actually, it's me. Water and ice coverage only, you shouldn't have. Locking into Aqua Jet shouldn't be easy for him, and otherwise I'll have plenty of ways to outspeed too, including with Gholdengo and Slitherwing, who specifically, because of 136, with the 1.5 times boost, will hit 204, and of course you can see with this 4 EVs here and the 28 here, I am able to hit 205 speed with Slitherwing and Gholdengo, so even if they're Scarf copying my Azu, that shouldn't be too much of an issue. Speaking of, Slitherwing doesn't really hit itself, and doesn't have a way to touch Gholdengo particularly hard either, some more easy switches there. Talonflame cannot hit Gholdengo, of course. Even if I had Will-O-Wisp, that would be immune, and really that just means that Taunt would be the only thing I'd worry about, and even then, do I really care that much? Brave Bird is, of course, an easy resist, and Toxtricity has speed for Scarf, Slitherwing, and Gholdengo as well, but I don't actually have the best straight-up answer to a Toxtricity copy. I'll have to find out the move first, though of course I can resist most of my own moves with Punk Rock, but I'll figure it out lest Boom Burst wreck my own team, including Garchomp. So there's the team in a nutshell here. Let's see if we can grab that W. No Haxorus or Annihilate is amazing, and no Toxapex either. Goodra's the big surprise this time, as well as Rotom-Mow being around. That makes me feel much safer, honestly. I can handle those two way more easily than Haxorus, or especially maybe the Annihilate. For a lead, I'm actually fearing Ditto a bit, as well as maybe the Rotom or the Screamtail, so the safest lead into all of those is probably just Toxtricity because he does not have the electric immunity, so we'll go with that. Good luck, have fun to Adam. It is the Ditto, and he's just going to be looking at a pretty standard set from my Toxtricity here. This is really awkward, as a Volt Switch from either of us could be fast or slow, depending on the speed tie. I don't feel like Volt Switching out for minimal chip only to get rocked by Boom Burst or Volt Switch on the missed prediction, so Boom Burst feels kinda safe. As Punk Rock actually has a little defensive utility here, it means I will be taking minimal chip from everything he's got, as I also resist Volt Switch. He's going to win the speed time Volt Switch out, and goes into the Goodra, and my Boom Burst will do a hefty chunk thanks to the turn 1 crit. That's not great to see against my opponent, but what can you do? I'm between Azu and Talonflame here, but knowing Talonflame's potential value for Volcarona defensively and offensively, I think I'm going to go into Azu, who has a harder time with a Belly Drum this sweep this game, considering what's here, even though there is no Pex. My play is rewarded by immuning Draco Meteor, which Adam did say afterwards was a result of his brain not working well there. We've all been in that situation. We'll take advantage of the free attack by... Actually, there's a shot this could be Scarfed, right? That crit actually matters negatively now. I could find out if it was AV or not without it, as I think those are the two most likely sets for Goodra, considering we don't see leftovers. I don't think there's a shot he stays in, and his defensive answers aren't too pressured. So let's make a smart double into Gholdengo here on the Corviknight. Yes, sir, that's easy. So what's going to be the follow-up play from him? I think it's going to be a switch. So in that case, it's either going to be me subbing up or clicking Thunder Wave. I do want to start getting that status going, so I think I'm just going to T-Wave away here. And a miss. It's a 90% accurate move, so of course. Mind you, it was a safe place to go for, as the only punish is a U-turn into something else, which in this case is going to be Volcarona. That's pretty terrifying, actually, and scared of a sub or a fire move, I could pretty easily go into Talonflame here, I think. Quiver Dance is scary, but currently fine. If it's a Terra Rock, I'd actually rather know now so I can Revenge KO with Azu and Slithering, so I actually don't think I'm too afraid of that Terra Rock. I think I'm just going to go ahead and try and get a hit in on it. Even better, rather than stop the setup, let's try to punish it. What's it going to do to me? So after the second Quiver Dance is punished by a Brave Bird, he's going to take 88%. You're not getting a chance to boost up again. And I'm rewarded here. For sure, as I'm going to click Brave Bird again, and he's going to switch out into the Corviknight. No boosts for you, and we got around probably the scariest offensive threat on my opponent's side. Against Corviknight, what's it doing to me? Brave Bird? I think even that's not going to do too much, so why don't I take this opportunity to heal up a bit. Don't see much else to do here, and healing up will make this a Volcarona check again later. Great stuff, can't get much better. Unless this happens, the Flame Body Burn on the Corviknight, that's absolutely perfect, and will make even more of my team into a perfect Corviknight check, and we're actually getting rewarded for our miss now too, so negatively impacted by the crit, positively impacted by the miss. We're all topsy-turvy here. And I may even be able to belly drum up on this later, too. I don't think this is going to emit that much offensive pressure here at all. For now, though, it was a pretty quick decision to go Scream Tail, and I think we can get even better by clicking Taunt, and we can stop his Stealth Rocks. That's amazing. We'll get to that switch in just a moment. It stopped Screens, Thunder Wave, or Encore 2, and Dazzling Gleam wasn't exactly going to be doing much with our fire typing, so that was just really nice being able to get that off. On this turn, I figured I may as well just get the U-turn just in case he's going to something actually dangerous, but instead it's just Corviknight. So we're going to get the easy U-turn off here, back into Gholdengo, and without needing to T-Wave anymore, I guess I can just go for the setup of Substitute pretty easily, although now it does mean that on the U-turn swap out, that will be into Goodra. That will threaten with a coverage move. We've already seen Earthquake, but could potentially have a fire move for coverage here too, especially with something like Assault Vest or the Expert Belt set. I guess it'd be worth it to at least paralyze this, unless we miss again. He's got at least some speed investment or a Scarf, though we will see, because he does break the sub first. I do, of course, only have the 4 speed investment. We do actually get that off. We do finally land. Very nice. Now with that speed investment he does have, I don't actually think he's going to have investment in the attacking stats now. Probably max speed, max HP build with either a Scarf or an Assault Vest, as it looks like it's mixed. As such, and with the amount of bulk I have, I don't think I'm actually all that worried about getting KO'd this turn. Even better with Scream Tail and Corviknight out there, I think I have plenty of opportunities to recover back up later. If it isn't an AV, it's going to be a 2-hit KO from here too, so let's just try it. 23% from a stab, 130 base power move. That's an AV for sure. And with Earthquake only doing about 29% back, that's fine by me just to stick around and do it again. At this point, I'm very content to finish this encounter with about 50% left after 2 more turns, taking the hit and then 2 turns of left to his recovery. And what exactly are his switch-ins to this anyways? Well, I guess potentially Ditto is a possibility, but with Hex coming in, 72% is pretty good, I would say. Really great chip on this too. We'll take an overall look in a bit, but for now, I don't feel like much like risking anything with this Gholdengo, as I'm seeing very limited options on his entire team to dealing with this. I'm going to have to switch. I did mention earlier that Azumarill would be able to set up on Corviknight, but he's been saving Rotom, so the safest switch in that will help get me even more chip quickly, I think, is actually going to be Azu, so I'm going to do that right now. We'll make that switch. And of course, it's going to be Hex from doing 27%. That's not bad. And now, I guess I may as well go for an attack this turn because it's pretty free, and Azu does have a big attack stat. But what? Rotom or Goodra seem like the main options, so I guess it's going to be Ice Spinner time. Corviknight, actually. Only 20%. That's going to be fine because it still isn't exactly doing anything to me. I'm actually cool to just Liquidation and see how much damage Azu can do while it's still out here. Yeah, may as well. I'll click the Water move and Tailwind? Man, why does their league love this move so much? Anyways, 33% on Corviknight. It's not quite enough for another one, but we are still threatening everything else on his team. I can go for a defense drop, and if I do, win the 1v1. So I think I'm just going to Liquidation again. U-turn out into the Rotom finally showing up. But Liquidation gets a crit for 45% from a resisted move. Sorry about that, but I'm not sure how much it mattered. We may see. I do actually see leftovers on it, so that's kind of neat. Maybe it's a bulkier set, maybe max HP, something like that. With that said, I do foresee a Willow coming, maybe a Volt Switch I think would be the other big option, and if that's the case, I wouldn't mind getting up some hazards since I don't think it'll be threatening me much. Let's go into Garchomp and get that on the field to start getting that out. But we do get caught a little bit. We dodged the Leaf Storm. What is happening this battle? That would have been a big chunk. Sorry about that too. Don't think it's worth him for him to stay in and do that again. Maybe a Willow this turn, and again, I'm cool with trading Burn for some hazards against what already looks like a pretty weakened team. It's going to be another Brain Fart, though, from with the Volt Switch into Ground type, maybe anticipating Go Slithering or Goldengo or Talonflame, but we take those for rocks. With Tailwind out, we do actually outspeed now, but why not just set up Spikes now, too? Just one layer, I think, will be fine for right now. And it's actually Nasty Plot, very interesting. What if the last move is T-Bolt or Discharge, then? Interesting. Actually, we can take advantage of this, again, especially with us surviving a +2 Leaf Storm relatively easily. Dragon Tail is here, let's go. Let's try it out. In best case scenario, Nasty Plot a second time means I get to tail freely, get it down to half, and drag out the now 3% Ditto. Well, I don't want to get hit by Dragon Tail, and I don't want him to set up Spikes in particular, and I don't care about Corviknight switching in. So maybe Earthquake is probably just the best play here to limit the damage. We're just going to be trading EQs then. And finally, we get a KO on the board on turn 23. Ditto finally goes down 6-5. But look at the situation right now. Stealth Rock up. We've got Layer of Spikes up. Volcarona at 12%. Goodra at 32% and Paralyzed. Corviknight at 41% and Burned. And Rotom-Mow at half, with Screamtail the only one at full. For me, everything is above half. Only Slitherwing is at full, though. But look at Goldengo's matchup right now. Crazy good. What punishes that? Well, maybe, I guess the start will end up being the Screamtail, and maybe healing something back up. And if that's the case, I think I may as well just stay in for at least one more turn to try and get off some good damage. Maybe punish it for setting up rocks. Actually, if I'm confident it won't hit me this turn, it may just try to wish itself or something else up. Why not just make it tougher by putting up some more spikes? Yeah, I think that will be good for it right now. And if the wish comes off, actually, I've got a pretty neat idea here. Dragon Tail does not hit the Screamtail in front of me, but do I care if Screamtail goes up to full? Instead, what if I click Dragon Tail to phase out the thing he's trying to heal up this turn, probably Corviknight or Rotom-Mow? I do kind of like that. I think we're going to try that move. Sing, and it hits. Wow, okay, that's totally fine actually, though I guess this means I could have gone Goldengo at pretty much any point in here. I'm actually going to stay in another turn 2 with Garchomp to burn a turn of sleep for later, but it does cost me him getting up rocks to my side of the field. Shouldn't be too big of a deal, though, hopefully, especially now, because now I do go Goldengo. Screamtail finally will reveal its full set with the Dazzling Gleam doing a full 9%, 3 after lefties. Very nice. Let's get this Paralyzed too, probably, as I think it's going to be going for Wish this turn, but instead it's going to be the switching into Corviknight, which of course avoids the para thanks to already being burned. Well, that sounds like an invitation to sub up, so I think we're just going to do that, as Corviknight will try and roost up here. No issues, we can wear him down pretty easily. May as well recover up to bring me up to full, because I'm at 49% there, so after lefties will be full. And you turn out into the Goodra, who after all that chip damage is going to be only at 3%, and wave 1 Hex will do it, 6-4. And now for the Rotom-Mow, who is still relatively healthy at 36%. It's going to be a pretty fair move here. Volt Switch, as I actually keep my sub, probably a low roll on low special attack investment, probably another Mon with max HP and speed. Very lucky, but ultimately unnecessary, as the hazards are going to do 29 to Screamtail. It's crazy. And another 37 followed up on the Hex. After lefties, it's out of range, so I'm going to T-Wave, Scream Tail, and the Wish to ensure I can do somewhere around 3/4 from now on with Hex against it. But a lack of knowledge on Wish mechanics versus healing Wish mechanics leads to a swap into Volcarona as Hex finishes that off 6-3. Rotom is in next at 24%. I think he's going to want the sub down. He actually decides to go for Leaf Storm, and I think on this turn, the last substitute here, I should finish the game. One more Hex here after a nasty plot. That should bring us to 6-2. I think I'm probably going to be behind the sub the rest of the game. It's going to be a pretty healthy Corviknight, actually, who's going to take a little bit more than half from Hex. Roost means it's a little bit of a pain, actually, and Pressure means his Roost will actually outstall my Hexes at this point without a crit. Guess we need a little bit of an extra oomph to grab that last bit of damage. Didn't expect anything to do this, but Terra Ghost does give Hex the extra bit of damage to finish Corviknight this turn, followed by the remaining health on Scream Tail to finish the 6-0 victory. GG to Adam. I think this was a pretty good matchup for me, and the game spiraled out of control as he tried to set up and save his Mons, maybe unnecessarily. I really don't have much of a recap that needs to be done here. Shout out to Slitherwing for coming but riding the bench, and Talonflame for a really impressive early game. But Goldango is the obvious MVP of the match for sure. That's going to bring us up to 1-1 at +5, a great comeback after week 1. However, we've got one of the toughest matchups of the season ahead. Week 3 against the Route 1 Burbs, who also suffered a surprising week 1 defeat, but are the 2-time defending champions who defeated us in the semifinals just last season for their first win against us. So you know we've got our work cut out for us. We'll see you then.